Have you ever noticed in zombie movies how there are always more than one zombie and they always come in hordes? You rarely see in the zombie movies where there's just one or two zombies. I mean, you might see a zombie here, a zombie there. There's always a horde. Well, today we're going to talk a little bit about how not to be part of the zombie horde, in a way. Hey folks, welcome back to Big Small Talk with JT. I know it's been a while and I have been quite busy with work and a few other things. I'm still working on content for this channel. When I was talking about zombies earlier, I wasn't talking about literal zombies, obviously. I was talking about, I would say mind zombies, maybe, but ideological zombies. But anyway, I was talking about being part of a crowd. Talking about being part of a horde or a mob. And the passage that triggered this thought is from Exodus chapter 23. And I've just finished listening to the audio Bible on Dwell through Exodus, and in this passage the Israelites were still in the desert, and God was giving the law to this people for their future purposes. And it is interesting that, and God also talks about towns and buildings, and of course they were all living in tents at that time, but God is preparing them to be a nation that is living in their own land, in their promised land. And in Exodus chapter 23, we see a few laws, about very direct laws about justice and mercy. And chapter 23 verse 1: do not spread false reports, do not help a guilty person by being a malicious witness, do not follow the crowd in doing wrong, which is the center of this particular episode. When you give testimony in a lawsuit, do not pervert justice by siding with the crowd, and do not show favoritism to a poor person in a lawsuit. And then it talks about, if you come across your enemy's ox or donkeys, be sure to return it. And verse 6: do not deny justice to your poor people in their lawsuits, have nothing to do with a false charge, and do not put an innocent man or honest person to death, for I will not acquit the guilty. Do not accept a bribe, for bribe blinds those who see and twists the words of the innocent. Do not oppress a foreigner. You yourselves know how it feels to be foreigners, because you were foreigners in Egypt. So I want to underline a few verses here. The first one that I'm going to go from the later verses, which is have nothing to do with a false charge, and do not put an innocent or honest person to death, for I will not acquit the guilty. So when you accuse an innocent person of having a crime, you actually are guilty of a crime. And do not deny justice to your poor people in their lawsuits. That's at the beginning. It's verse 6, and that's pretty. It's pretty common sense these days. I mean, our society is pretty much, look after the poor, so we should not be oppressing the poor or take the side of the rich. Right? I think every side of most people of any stripes of ideologies or politics agree with that. But what is interesting here in this passage is this, and I think God is preparing his people to not fall into a particular kind of trap. And it says here, do not, and in verse 3, do not show favoritism to a poor person in a lawsuit. Do not show favoritism to a poor person in a lawsuit. It's all part and parcel of justice. And what we see today is quite the perversion of this. It's perversion of justice. And this particular verse is important because today we see that poverty or being disadvantaged has become almost a virtue in its own right in our society. And again, this is a product of cultural Marxism, which pits the oppressor and the oppressed. So the oppressed is always virtuous regardless of what they do. And because of that, sometimes people do defend those who are poor just because they are poor, not necessarily because they are actually in the right. And God wants his people to be cautious and to not fall into that trap of looking at being disadvantaged as a sign of virtue. I mean, our society has gone even further. I mean, just because because of the nature of your skin color or of your heritage, and that is enough for some people to be classified as, oh, you are a poor or you're oppressed, regardless of the actual reality of that person's life situation. And that is connected to the whole do not follow the crowd in doing wrong. Okay, do not follow the crowd in doing wrong. Verse 2, when you give testimony in your lawsuit, do not pervert justice by siding with the crowd. Do not pervert justice by siding with the crowd. So when you follow the crowd, you can't, when you follow the crowd and the crowd is actually in the wrong, you are perverting justice. And this is where the whole zombie thing has come from. A zombie horde is basically a mob who is pursuing something that is wrong, but the people who are in the mob don't necessarily know that they are pursuing the wrong thing. So how do we not become part of a zombie horde in the moral sense? Not obviously not in the in the literal sense. How do we prevent ourselves from becoming part of a zombie horde? How do we not fall into this trap that the Lord wanted his people to not fall into? First of all, there are two things. First of all, we must acknowledge the reality of absolute truth, of absolute morality. And this means to acknowledge and to keep in mind and to hold on to this foundation of the word that there is such thing as truth, and if there is such thing as truth, there is such thing as justice. I have talked about this before, that truth and justice are related concepts. And what is just must be true, and what is true leads to justice. And so something has to be able to be determined to be true, regardless of the status of the person that is involved, whether they are rich or they are poor. It doesn't matter. So if you have a case, you have to determine the truth of it, regardless of whether the person who is concerned, who is accusing the other person, is poor or rich. Okay, so because we are seeing, for example, like accusations of police brutality and all that, and it leads into this mob justice of the person, of somebody, usually a cop, for example. I'm only using this whole police thing as an example. Okay, is accused because they are seen to be an oppressor, or they are seen to be stronger, or somebody who is richer, is more wealthy, and therefore they must be cast to be the villain, and they must be in the wrong just because they are richer, or just because they are more powerful, maybe in society. Okay, regardless of whether or not they have actually done anything wrong. And it's a human tendency, especially in our society. And ironically, our society has this tendency, because we value uplifting and defending those who are weak. But this must not take the place of pursuing real justice, which is pursuing the truth of any situation, of any case. And secondly, the second thing that we must keep in mind, so that we don't fall into the trap of becoming a moral zombie, so to speak, is to exercise critical thinking. And critical thinking is not easy. Critical thinking is a hard skill. I try to impart to my students and other people, that the skill of critical thinking. We live in a society where there's a lot of the thinking seems to be done for us by media, by social media, by other people, and the skill of critical thinking is often missing, right? And it is related to the whole idea of pursuing truth above all things. Because to pursue truth, we need to be able to think critically. So we take a situation, we take a case, we take any difficult circumstances, and rather than jumping into conclusion, we have to look at the details, and it's hard work to dig into the truth of something, and to be able to hang back for a while and say, okay, I don't know all the facts right now, but it's okay, right? I don't have all the facts right now, but it's okay, because I'm in the process of digging into sifting through the facts, and we just want, we are in an instant society, so we just want the facts right now, right this instance, and we want to be able to come to a conclusion in the next 30 seconds or in the next 280 words, to use a Twitter comparison, right? But let's talk about Twitter. Like we are so used to something quick and fast, and that's it, jumping to a conclusion. But think about this: whenever we contribute to a public perception of a case or a situation or something, and we just click like on social media, or we just make a quick comment on social media, and what we have done when we do it without thinking critically first about the situation, what we have done is actually we have joined that moral zombie. We have joined the zombie horde that condemns somebody, or acquit somebody of any wrongdoings without thinking through the facts, without actually critically thinking through the facts. And as a result, we have not only joined the zombie horde, we have also helped to condemn that person who might or might not be innocent. And that is not what God wants. God is truth. Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. So God is truth, and if we are followers of God, if we are his children, then we must also be concerned first and foremost about the truth of every single thing that we come across in society. And if we fail to do that, we are neglecting our duty and our identity as God's followers. So, that's all for now. And I hope you'll join me again next time. And may God bless you.